Ever wonder how jazz pros add melody, movement and color to their chords while yours feel clunky and hard to use? This simple approach instantly made playing chords easier and gave me 30% more options overnight. In this video I'm going to show you the exact method that will have you playing beautiful, flexible jazz chords coming out of the shapes that you already know. Let me first show you how it opens up a basic 2-5-1. Now I'm sure you already know this. I think it's obvious that playing these as rootless voicings makes them much more flexible. First, you get this. And with the rootless voicings, you can easily start adding melody, like this. But it actually goes a lot further if you figure out what you are playing. Now, when I discovered this, it unlocked a whole new world of sounds. In fact, 33% more voicings. I was kind of feeling bored with how I played the same chords all the time, so I played a D-7 chord, and then I tried to play it without the root, and I quickly recognized that this was in fact a second inversion F major triad, which makes sense because D-7 is of course D, F, A and C, and if you take away the D, then you have F, A and C, which is an F major triad. Now that I discovered that, I also realized that the C major 7 is the same. So it's an E minor triad in the second inversion over a C, because C major 7 is C, E, G and B. I couldn't figure out the G7-9. It didn't really make sense at the time, but as I'll explain later, that is in fact also a triad. Now, at the time, I just looked at it and thought, well, it's the F major triad, where I'm moving one note down a half step. That'll do. Just think about how powerful this is. I can play a 2-5-1 in C major anywhere that I can play an F major triad. Already the inversions give me this lower on the neck. And here I'm sure you recognize that the first chord is a rootless version of this D-7. And of course the last one is a rootless version of this C major 7. But there is another option or inversion that you don't play as a complete chord, which is where the 33% are hidden. And that is if you move up the neck and get this. I'll return to how the rootless G7-9 is in fact a triad. That is more important than you might think. But first, let me show you how easy it is to add some beautiful movement if you're playing the chords like this. Another huge advantage of using these triad-based chords is how easy it becomes to add melody and smooth voice leading to your playing. With traditional chord shapes, it's difficult and demanding to create melodic movement, but watch how naturally it happens when you use these simple triad shapes. Let's first take the same 2-5-1 progression from the previous section. And notice how much richer this sounds when we add some simple melodic movement on the D-7. And on the G7, there's an inner voice moving from the 9th down to the flat 9 onto the C major 7. And here you get this beautiful chromatic line that's moving up from the 5th to the 13th. Keep in mind that when I play these voicings, I'm thinking about the chords that are already in the progression, so D-7, G7 to C major 7. I'm not trying to think of the triads as complicated substitutions that are put on top. It might feel a little bit unfamiliar at first, but you'll get comfortable with this surprisingly quickly, especially in the places where you can see the triad as a part of another voicing that you already know. Using only 3 notes per chord gives you incredible freedom. Now colorful notes like the 11th are easy to reach on the minor 7 chord, plus that the bright major 7 has a smooth transition to a warm major 6 chord. This instantly makes you more free when playing chords, but if you look a little bit closer at what you're playing, you recognize new triads that you never thought of using. Don't forget that there are more triads than the usual 4 variations that we always talk about. Let me show you what I mean. You need more than the 4 triads that we usually think of, and it will show you how to cover a lot of chords like this. But let's just start with the 4 common options. Look at the diatonic triads in the major scale. And let's add the diatonic triads of harmonic minor. Here you have major, minor, diminished and augmented triads, but there are a few more that you want to be aware of because they're incredibly useful as 3-note voicings. sus4 triads are great for rich sounding jazz chords like minor 7, 11 and major 7 with a 13th. You can use a C sus4 triad, so C, F and G for a D minor 7, because that gives you a flat 7, a flat 3 and an 11, and that's of course a D minor 7 with an 11. Now on C major 7, a second inversion E sus4 gives you the major 7 B, the third E, and a beautiful sounding 13th A. And check out how great this sounds with a nice ascending melody. Another place a sus4 triad is useful is as a modern sounding 6-9 chord. So A sus4 in second inversion is E, A and D, which is perfect for a rich C6-9 chord. You might have also noticed another familiar shape in this example, the G7 flat 13. If it looks familiar, that's because essentially it's the same shape as the G7-9 chord that you saw earlier. Let's demystify exactly how that works. But I also want to show you a special sus4 chord later. Now this might get a bit controversial, at least I sometimes make people angry with this triad. Let's start with the rootless G7 with a 9. If you look at the high inversion of this one, then I think it's pretty clear that if you look at the movement that you already saw in the 2-5, then you can also look at this voicing and say, well, that's an F major triad, but I've lowered the 5th down a half step. So it's a major flat 5. Now, from a traditional theory perspective, you rarely see a scale that sort of naturally includes a major flat 5 triad. And that's exactly why some people might find this name controversial. But if you're just trying to describe these 3 notes clearly, then calling it a major flat 5 really just makes the most sense. And calling it something like an F sharp 11 doesn't really work for just 3 notes. Now, even though it's uncommon, thinking of it as a major flat 5 triad can open up some new interesting sounds that you probably wouldn't have discovered otherwise. And this is a chord that's actually great for a lot of things. So it's the G7 with a 9. It's of course also a D flat 7 with a flat 13. And it's a great way to play a D minor 6 as well. But it's also great for some voice leading tricks. This example also adds a flat 5 to the dominant and uses the 6-9 voicing for the C chord. And notice how incredibly smooth this melody is. There is another common 3-note structure that is very useful, but again, not everyone, and especially not AI, thinks that this is a triad. This next 3-note chord is incredibly useful for some very common jazz chords, and you'll probably recognize it right away. Though to be honest, it is debatable whether it technically is a triad. In fact, I got curious and decided to ask ChatGPT if there was such a thing as a diminished sus4 triad. And ChatGPT confidently told me that a dim sus4 triad definitely does not exist. Well, I didn't really feel like arguing music theory with an AI, but let's check this out for ourselves. If you move a sus4 triad step by step through a major scale, you get these chords, and 2 of them sound a bit unusual. These 2 stick out. The F sus sharp 4, sometimes referred to as a Lydian triad, and then the B diminished sus4, which is of course B, E and F. But I'm sure you recognize this inversion as well, F, B and E. Now these 3 notes sound amazing as the upper structure of a G7 with a 13, a D minor 6-9, maybe a G sharp diminished with a flat 6, or D flat 7 sharp 9. And you can put this unusual chord to use in a practical example. Check out how beautiful it sounds, especially with the inner voice trick on the C major 7 chord, which is one of my favorite moves. Now you've heard all these beautiful sounds and movements with these chords, but how do you use them in a chord melody? Let's look at that. Having this extended set of triads or 3-note voicings, you can start harmonizing melodies with more creativity and freedom. Check out how I'm applying this to the first section of the song Beautiful Love, mixing in some of the sus4 and major flat 5 triads that I just showed you. clear, this is a very powerful concept that can also create rich and colorful chord melody and chord solos. In fact, one of the first places that I discovered this powerful approach was in the chord solos of the legendary jazz guitarist Joe Pass. Listen to this beautiful phrase from the chord solo on Days of Wine and Roses. He's sort of using a triad pair over G minor 7 to play this G minor 7 C7 lick, B flat and C major triads. This triad approach makes it so much easier to harmonize melodic runs like this. I strongly recommend exploring this concept yourself. You can use it in many different ways. Check out this simple variation of the same idea. Now, if you really want freedom with your chord melodies and chord solos, it's crucial to be able to smoothly connect these triad-based chords to all your other chord voicings, without things becoming complicated or overwhelming. And luckily, there is an efficient system for doing exactly that. It's the same system Joe Pass himself used to easily add melody to his comping and chord solos. I've broken down exactly how Joe Pass approached chords and melody in this next video, and you'll see how easily it all fits together, giving you a clear, practical roadmap for creating beautiful chord melodies and chord solos yourself. There's no reason to stay stuck playing the same static chord grips all the time. Check it out, learn jazz, make music.